Hello and welcome. Today we're diving into Problem Solved, inspiring quotes for clarity and action. Life often throws curveballs, but with the right perspective, every challenge becomes an opportunity. Prepare to unlock a reservoir of wisdom from brilliant minds, guiding you toward clear thinking and decisive steps. Let's find your path to resolution together. 1. The greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insoluble. They can never be solved but only outgrown. This quote reminds us that life's most profound challenges can't be definitively fixed, but are instead transcended through personal growth, a shift in perspective, or an evolution of character. 2. You can increase your problem-solving skills by honing your question-asking ability. Here's what that really means. Improving your capacity to effectively address challenges comes from becoming more skilled at formulating insightful and relevant questions which guide you towards better understanding and solutions. 3. The first step to problem solving is figuring out who's got the problem. This quote reminds us that to effectively address an issue, you must first clearly identify who is directly affected or responsible for it. Pinpointing ownership clarifies the path forward. 4. Hot heads and cold hearts never solved anything. Here's what that really means. Emotional impulsivity and a lack of empathy are unproductive when trying to resolve issues. Effective solutions require calm reasoning and compassion. 5. Children that play outside develop better problem-solving skills and have a stronger ability to work within a group. This quote reminds us that outdoor play fosters crucial developmental benefits in children, enhancing their ability to creatively tackle problems and collaborate effectively with peers. 6. Don't tell your problems to people. 80% don't care, and the other 20% are glad you have them. Here's what that really means. Be selective about sharing your difficulties, as many people are indifferent and some might even derive satisfaction from your misfortunes. Choose your confidants wisely. 7. Be warned that being an expert is more than understanding how a system is supposed to work. Expertise is gained by investigating why a system doesn't work. This quote reminds us that true mastery in any field comes not just from knowing how things function correctly, but from deeply understanding the reasons behind failures and malfunctions. 8. A successful person isn't necessarily better than her less successful peers at solving problems. Her pattern recognition facilities have just learned what problems are worth solving. Here's what that really means. High achievers often succeed not because they solve problems more efficiently, but because they skillfully identify and focus their efforts only on the most impactful and worthwhile challenges. 9. It is vain to do with more what can be done with less. This quote reminds us that it's wasteful and inefficient to use excessive resources or effort when a simpler, more minimalist approach would suffice. Strive for efficiency and elegance. 10. We may have a perfectly adequate way of doing something, but that does not mean there cannot be a better way, so we set out to find an alternative way. This is the basis of any improvement that is not fault correction or problem solving. Here's what that really means. Even when current methods are sufficient, the pursuit of superior alternatives drives true improvement. This proactive quest for betterment goes beyond merely fixing errors. 11. Intelligence is what you use when you don't know what to do. This quote reminds us that intelligence is primarily engaged when faced with uncertainty or novel challenges, guiding us to navigate situations where established solutions are unknown. It's a tool for the unknown. 12. The stronger person is not the one making the most noise, but the one who can quietly direct the conversation toward defining and solving problems. Here's what that really means. True strength and influence lie in the ability to subtly guide discussions toward productive outcomes and solutions rather than being the loudest or most assertive voice. 13. To launch a business means successfully solving problems. Solving problems means listening. This quote reminds us that the foundation of successful entrepreneurship is the ability to effectively address customer needs, which fundamentally requires attentive listening to understand those needs. 14. Peace is a process, a way of solving problems. This quote reminds us that peace is not a static state, but an ongoing, active approach to resolving conflicts and managing differences through constructive means. 15. Erroneous assumptions can be disastrous. This quote reminds us that basing decisions or actions on incorrect presumptions can lead to extremely harmful or catastrophic consequences. Verify your foundational beliefs. 16. We never get to see that our kid is capable of solving problems on his own. We never start to build up the faith that they can actually do it. Here's what that really means. Over-intervening in children's struggles prevents them from developing self-reliance and hinders our belief in their independent problem-solving abilities. Allow them space to learn. 17. Solving problems, actually solving them, not just claiming you do, solving perceived urgent problems is a surefire way to get the world to beat a path to your door. This quote reminds us that genuinely and effectively addressing urgent needs or difficulties creates immense demand and recognition. Authentic solutions attract opportunities. 18. The history of science fiction started in the caves 20,000 years ago. The ideas on the walls of the cave were problems to be solved. It's problem solving. Primitive scientific knowledge, primitive dreams, primitive blueprinting to solve problems. Here's what that really means. Science fiction at its core is a manifestation of humanity's innate drive to identify challenges and imagine creative solutions, reflecting a fundamental human approach to problem solving. 19. I always thought problem solving was greatly overrated and that the most important thing was problem creation. This quote reminds us that this is a provocative take suggesting that innovation often comes not from merely solving existing issues, but from identifying new questions or challenges that push boundaries and lead to new discoveries. 20. We experience problem-solving sessions as war zones. We view competing ideas as enemies, and we use problems as weapons to blame and defeat opposition forces. No wonder we can't come up with real, lasting solutions. Here's what that really means. When collaborative problem-solving devolves into conflict and blame, it hinders the ability to find genuine, sustainable resolutions. A combative approach stifles effective solutions. 21. Pay attention to the inner voice that tells you when something feels right. Much of your creative problem-solving occurs at an unconscious level. This quote reminds us that trust your intuition and subconscious insights, as they often play a significant role in guiding you towards innovative solutions that aren't immediately obvious. 22. It is better to know nothing than to know what ain't so. This quote reminds us that it's preferable to admit ignorance than to hold false beliefs, as incorrect information is more detrimental than a lack of knowledge. Unlearning is harder than learning. 23. Always prepare secondary ways of dealing with problems. This quote reminds us that it's wise to have backup plans or alternative strategies ready for unforeseen difficulties. Anticipation and flexibility improve resilience. 24. Humans hardly ever learn from the experience of others. They learn, when they do, which isn't often, on their own, the hard way. This quote reminds us that people often prefer to gain wisdom through personal mistakes and difficult experiences rather than benefiting from the lessons or warnings of others. Direct experience is a harsh but frequent teacher. 25. Solving problems is at the foundation of our survival. This quote reminds us that the ability to identify and overcome challenges is a fundamental skill essential for human existence and continuation. It's a core aspect of survival.
26. It is difficult to distinguish deduction from what in other circumstances is called problem solving. And concept learning, inference, and reasoning by analogy are all instances of inductive reasoning. None of these things can be done separately from each other or from anything else. They are pseudo-categories. This quote reminds us that cognitive processes like deduction, induction, and problem-solving are deeply intertwined and not easily isolated into distinct categories. They represent a complex, integrated web of human thought. 27. When your happiness comes primarily from the happiness of others, you know you have moved from a me experience to a we experience, and the whole problem-solving and opportunity-seizing process changes. Here's what that really means. Shifting your primary source of joy from personal gain to the well-being of others transforms your approach to challenges and opportunities. It fosters a collective mindset that alters how you engage with the world. 28. Innovation is hard because solving problems people didn't know they had and building something no one needs look identical at first. This quote reminds us that true innovation is challenging because the initial stages of addressing unarticulated needs or creating genuinely novel solutions can appear indistinguishable from developing useless ideas. The path to groundbreaking invention is often unclear. 29. Science is a dynamic undertaking directed to lowering the degree of the empiricism involved in solving problems. Or, if you prefer, science is a process of fabricating a web of interconnected concepts and conceptual schemes arising from experiments and observations and fruitful of further experiments and observations. Here's what that really means. Science is a continuous, evolving process aimed at reducing reliance on trial and error by building a coherent system of ideas derived from observations. This framework, in turn, generates new avenues for discovery and experimentation. 30. I've learned over decades of building that a deadline is a potent tool for problem solving. This quote reminds us that fixed time limits can be highly effective motivators that sharpen focus and accelerate the process of finding solutions. Constraints can foster creativity and efficiency. 31. In my experience, the worst thing you can do to an important problem is to discuss it. Here's what that really means. Excessive talk and prolonged deliberation without action can be detrimental to resolving significant issues. It implies that overanalysis can paralyze progress. 32. As a producer, you've got to be involved in helping out with solving problems. This quote reminds us that a producer's role inherently involves actively assisting in the resolution of challenges that arise during a project. It's a hands-on, solution-oriented position. 33. One of the reasons most people are not good at solving problems and manifesting or attracting into their life what they want is because their thoughts are always on what's wrong and on what's missing and on the problem. Here's what that really means. A primary barrier to effective problem-solving and achieving desires is a pervasive negative mindset that constantly focuses on deficiencies and obstacles. Your thoughts shape your reality. 34. Progress is obtained only by exploiting opportunities, not by solving problems. When you solve problems, all you do is guarantee a return to normalcy. This quote reminds us that true advancement comes from seizing new chances, while merely resolving issues only restores the status quo. Innovation and growth require proactive opportunity seeking. 35. The trouble with most problem-solving books for parents is that they start with the idea that the child has a problem. Then they try to tell us how to fix the child, or else, after blaming the parent, they suggest how we can fix ourselves. Here's what that really means. Many parenting guides for problem-solving are flawed because they wrongly assume the child is the sole problem, or they assign blame, rather than offering holistic solutions for the entire family dynamic. 36. Man is brilliant at solving problems, but solving them only makes him the victim of his own childishness and laziness. It is this recognition that has made almost every major philosopher in history a pessimist. This quote reminds us that humanity's skill in resolving immediate problems paradoxically often enables deeper flaws like immaturity and indolence, a pattern that has led many philosophers to a pessimistic view of human nature. 37. The important thing is that over time, scientific progress transforms things that used to have to be dealt with in a problem-solving mode down to the pattern recognition space, and from pattern recognition into the rules-based mode. This is the mechanism by which less trained people are enabled to do more sophisticated things. This is always the way disruption happens. It enables a larger population of less experienced people to do more sophisticated things. Here's what that really means. Scientific advancement simplifies complex tasks over time, moving them from requiring expert problem-solving to mere pattern recognition, and eventually to rules-based automation. This process of simplification is how disruptive technologies empower less skilled individuals to achieve advanced results. 38. Conservatism has always been about reforming government and solving problems, and that's why the conservative movement should lead on immigration reform. This quote reminds us that the core tenets of conservatism inherently involved improving governance and addressing societal issues, suggesting that the movement is uniquely positioned to lead on complex challenges. 39. After 2 years of undergraduate study, it was clear that I was bored by the regime of problem-solving required by the Cambridge mathematical tripos. A very sensitive mathematics don recommended that I talk to the history of astronomy Michael Hoskin, and the conversation led me to enroll in the history and philosophy of science for my final undergraduate year. Here's what that really means. Personal, academic, or career paths can significantly shift when one encounters fields that align better with their natural inclinations, moving from rote problem-solving to deeper conceptual inquiry. 40. Now more people are doing work that requires individual decision-making and problem-solving, and we need an education system that will help develop those skills. Here's what that really means. The evolving job market increasingly demands individual critical thinking and solution-finding abilities, necessitating an education system that prioritizes and cultivates these skills. 41. Today, much of what we call education is merely knowledge gathering and remembering. Problem-solving and thinking, never strong parts of our education system, have been downgraded in all but a few scientific subjects. This quote reminds us that modern education often overemphasizes memorization at the expense of crucial skills like critical thinking and problem-solving, which are only truly prioritized in a limited number of scientific disciplines. 42. Talk of belief in these animals is not some kind of anthropomorphism. We simply cannot explain the kinds of problem-solving and behavioral sophistication some species exhibit without supposing that they have genuine beliefs. But once these ethologists finish making the case for animal belief, they quickly move to talk of animal knowledge as well. What I argue is that this is not a mere façon de parler. This quote reminds us that the sophisticated problem-solving and behaviors observed in certain animal species strongly suggest they possess genuine beliefs and knowledge, making it difficult to dismiss such cognitive abilities as mere human projection. 43. When we cut off access to certain parts of our cities to people on bikes or in wheelchairs, we're not only doing economic damage, we're also doing culture damage. New York is the culture capital of the world because people are running into each other on the street all the time. They're forced to engage in creativity and problem-solving. Here's what that really means. Limiting accessibility in urban areas not only harms the economy but also damages the vibrant creative culture that thrives on spontaneous human interaction and collaborative problem-solving. Inclusivity fosters innovation.
44. Life is problems. Living is solving problems. This quote reminds us that problems are an inherent and continuous aspect of existence, and the act of living fundamentally entails actively addressing and resolving these challenges. 45. There are other dimensions of biotechnology. If you think of biotechnology like the internet, it's not a category, it's an infrastructure that can be deployed to sustain or disrupt. In healthcare, the most complex problems at the high end have to be dealt with in a problem-solving mode by the best, most experienced physicians you can find. This quote reminds us that biotechnology is a foundational infrastructure, like the internet, with broad applications for both maintaining and transforming industries. In healthcare, its complex challenges require highly skilled, experienced professionals to solve them. 46. I have a lot of appreciation for what people do in front of the camera as well as behind the camera. I don't think I could like one without the other. Eventually, I think the road will lead me down to producing or directing because it's more about problem solving. This quote reminds us that a deep appreciation for all aspects of creative work, both seen and unseen, often leads to roles like producing or directing, as these positions are fundamentally about managing and resolving challenges. 47. When I figured that I could do anything if I was simply methodical about it, I went to the library, and this was before the internet, and I searched for a career that was creative, would not fall into a routine, involved problem-solving, and making things. It also had to be dynamic. I came up with special effects. Here's what that really means. By applying a systematic and investigative approach, one can discover a career path that perfectly matches their desire for creativity, dynamic challenges, problem-solving, and hands-on creation. 48. Learning to fly an airplane taught me a way of thinking, an approach to problem-solving that was applicable and effective. Pilots are very methodical and meticulous, and artists tend not to be. This quote reminds us that mastering a discipline like aviation can instill a highly disciplined and systematic approach to problem-solving that can be beneficially applied across various, even seemingly unrelated fields of work. 49. In ethics, we don't make progress by discovering pre-existent truths. We do so by solving problems. Here's what that really means. Advancement in ethical thought is achieved not by uncovering universal moral absolutes, but by actively addressing and resolving real-world dilemmas and conflicts. Ethics is a practical, evolving discipline. 50. Whatever I've experienced in my life is a part of my story, and I'm proud of that. But it's someone who wakes up early, works all day, believes in charitable work, business-minded, diligent, accountable, problem-solving. I'm so much about school, consistency, and tradition. This quote reminds us that personal identity is a complex blend of lived experiences and cultivated virtues. Beyond personal history, characteristics like diligence, accountability, and a commitment to learning and problem-solving define one's true character. And that concludes our collection of powerful insights. Remember, the journey from problem to solution begins with a single thought, followed by courageous action. Let these quotes resonate, empowering you to navigate life's complexities with newfound clarity. If you found inspiration today, please like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to the Mind Shelf for more empowering content. Until next time, keep solving, keep growing.